Hi there. My name is Dakota Pariset. I'm the artistic director of the Lightbulb Factory. And we want to go ahead and welcome you to our intro video for our first of two end of the year projects. Our first project is actually the second iteration of our Sparks series, Sparks Volume 2 Unhinged. We just want to take a quick moment. It's been kind of quiet for the past couple months. Just come back and introduce first off our upcoming events, along with digging a little bit more into this particular project with one of our not so new but new ensemble members. So I'm going to go ahead and let Julia-Kaye, you introduce yourself and kind of just segue that into telling us a little bit about how you got here, what you've been up to in Chicago, and then how you found the factory.
Yeah, absolutely. What a whirlwind of the last few years it has been. So I came to Chicago right after graduating from University of Iowa, where I studied theater, because I knew I wanted a theater town. I wanted a theater city, and Chicago seemed like the right fit for me. So I came to Chicago in 2016, fell in love with the city, fell in love with the theater. I've had the privilege of working with a handful of different theaters here, both on stage and then also in classes. And in fall of 2019 was when I first discovered BYOT, which is Bring Your Own Theater, and kind of found out about their 24-hour play fests. And that was actually the first time I met you. So the first show I did with them, you were working on that, and I met you briefly, and I wasn't paired up with you on a team, but I got to see you perform. And I don't even think I've told you this, but I saw you perform on stage and I was like, I have to work with him. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but like, I have to find a way to work with this man.
Song? It was the Scream song, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But you just have this presence on stage, and I was like, I just feel like he gets it. Like it was just something special. And now, after having the privilege of working with you many times over the years, I think part of it was like a fellow Meisner actor recognizing some Meisner stuff, but also just in general, you're great to work with and a great human being. So thankfully, I've got to work with you a lot over the last few years, which started a lot with BYOT. So I did a lot of work with them, 2019 through now. Like I still work with them. I honestly don't even remember how many times. So did a lot of work
together.
A lot, yeah. All good though. So worked with BYOT. So that included a lot of 24-hour play festivals. I've done some workshops with BYOT. I've done the Whiskey Radio Hour, which was like an audio play performance. And through that, I worked with you a ton, and that's kind of how I got introduced to the Lightbulb Factory. And immediately when I started checking out the YouTube and the clips and hearing you kind of explain it, what drew me the most to Lightbulb Factory in the beginning was at University of Iowa, there was a huge focus on new work, especially for players, but new work and focusing on the process and focusing on development. And it seemed like the Lightbulb Factory was, I mean, it might be punny, but like a factory almost that really focused on the work and the creation and the development of new work or younger artists or just trying new things. And I loved that. So that got me interested in it just as an audience member and someone enjoying the content. And then it was about a year ago, you asked me to submit a video for the first volume of Sparks. And from there, just kind of launched. I think I did 2 or 3 projects with Lightbulb Factory before officially becoming an ensemble member.
Yeah. And we just finally, this will be our second live, like fully live in person, not in your living room event.
Yeah.
So that's huge. That's like a big step. And it's nerve-wracking and it's exciting, and it's just, you can picture being in My Buddies for when it happens. And can't think of a better person to helm that thing than you. And I have to say, if we're talking about actor crushes, you are definitely one of mine. seeing your work and then getting the chance to like talk to you when we were doing like the Shell project that never was.
Yeah.
Just in peace. Just a kindred, you know, and maybe it's that Meisner thing, and it's like that mix of just where we come from, like, but it I don't think we have performed on stage together, but it's on my to-do list because you just get it. You're so good. Oh,
thank you.
We'll never, ever, ever, ever forget Gino's play, The Bunbury Diaries. The Bunbury fucking Diaries.
I love Gino.
But I'm so glad that you mentioned that you actually, I think you led off the Sparks Volume 1 last year with 60 Years to Life.
Yeah.
That was another question I wanted to ask, was when we were kind of deciding who was going to helm which of the two projects we're going to be ending the year with, what drew you to wanting to do Sparks? And then in that vein, what inspired you to give it the scope of the Unhinged?
Yeah, so when I was a participant in Sparks Volume 1, what I really loved about that is the same reason I wanted to work on Sparks Volume 2. And that is, it is so focused truly on the performers. Like it is about the actors. It is for the actors. It's about their process and how they work best, like with themselves, and if they choose to work with a director, and the lens through which they see the script or the work that they've chosen to perform. For those that don't know, the process is basically the Lightbulb Factory picks a theme. And so that's predetermined. And we provide options to performers that they can kind of choose monologues that fit within that theme, but they can also choose their own as long as it fits within the theme. And from there, once an actor decides they want to participate, then they can choose if they want to work with a director, if they'd rather just work on it by themselves. And then they have X number of weeks to work on it, put it together, and then they send the recording in. So being able, when I was a participant, to be like, okay, how do I think I will do best with the piece that I've chosen? I chose 60 Years to Life because it was a piece I fell in love with in college, but it wasn't my type, right? Like I wouldn't choose that as an audition piece because I wouldn't be cast as that type of character for theaters who are kind of typecasting. But I loved the piece and I wanted to do it. And so having the opportunity to play with that and to be able to do that, and as an artist, whether you're a director or an actor for that, one of the great things is even if you wouldn't typically be cast as that, or even if you wouldn't typically put that on stage, you still learn so much working on it. And I think one of the big things that theaters and directors are realizing more is that typecasting is kind of BS, right? So I think that's another good lens to kind of have, that Lightbulb Factory can showcase, like, hey, you know, all these people that typically wouldn't be cast as X, Y, Z. Here's why maybe they should, or why we should just get rid of typecasting in general. But that's another discussion. So that's why I really loved that, and having the flexibility of that. And I think one of the beautiful things about it is, as the producer, which you were for series Volume 1, sorry, I keep saying series, for Volume 1, once you have the theme and once you pair actors and directors up and all of that, you really don't touch the process until you get the video clips back. And so being able to then kind of get the pieces of the puzzle and figure out how to blend them all together and work it within the frame of the theme, I think is very, very cool. And that's why I loved it so much.
Yeah, we've got like a really interesting kind of, and I'm floored by how you've managed to be able to weld it all together. But traditionally, we've done the virtual rollout process where we get all the videos, you then structure it and you release them in kind of a weekly episodic compilation. And with us, the advent of us going live earlier in the year, albeit in a very microcosmic way,
Sure.
We're melding that with a live show. So how has kind of been prepping for that been, and finding the ways to structure it digitally, but then also with a month between that and then the live show?
So, good question. I think one thing that kind of plays with the fun of that is the Unhinged theme. So this is going back a little bit, but then it leads in. So I chose Unhinged as a theme because for as long as I can remember, I've really been drawn towards art of all kinds, books, short stories, theater, film, whatever it might be. That's where things are just a little off, right? It's just a little, something's a little strange, something's a little unpredictable. Not necessarily in a twist sense, but things like the yellow wallpaper, author and writer Miranda July, I think even Fleabag, the series Fleabag, I think is another kind of good example. You're like, yeah. And I think part of it's the unpredictability, but also I think one thing that maybe people wouldn't think of when they hear the term Unhinged, but I think becomes clear if you watch the series or come to the live show, is sometimes the unhinged aspect is the honesty of it, which I think is a little bit like with the example of Fleabag, right? There's, for those of us that have an internal monologue, there's moments where we're going through our day with an internal monologue. And if we were to look back at the transcript of it a day later, we'd be like, okay, or give it to someone else. They're like, what is that person thinking? Right. But it's the honesty of the moment. It's the honesty of being no more fucks to give, or being frustrated with the day, or just the moment where you lose it for whatever reason. And I think there's something so real about that. And even in the most mundane of situations. So I just love that. And with the series, we have a scope of really different levels and different versions and different meanings of Unhinged. So I'm excited to see that. And how that plays into virtual versus in person is there's so much to play with. So with the recordings that people are submitting, I think for the most part, people are pretty static, right? The camera's not really moving with them, whether they're standing or have a little bit of range. They're mostly just here talking to the camera. But I think when we go in person, there's going to be a little more movement, maybe some talking to the audience. I don't know. And we're also having some elements at the live show that are not being shown digitally, right? We have a couple secrets that we're keeping, so you have to come to the live show, right? There's a couple fun treasures that I'm very, very, very excited for, that I have already, actors have already agreed to do things, and apparently they're still going to be friends with me after, even though it is going to be a little unhinged. I'm very excited for what they are excited to do with us. So that's a teaser to come to the live show. And I think also the show's at My Buddies, which is a Chicago neighborhood bar that has a great like small event space in the back where they do a lot of small theater things or karaoke or drag bingo and drag shows. And it's such an intimate space and a lovely space and an easy to kind of adjust and play with space. And I think being in that space also just gives a lot of freedom to the performers to play around with it. And I think it's just the perfect kind of next step for having an in-person production for us. So I'm very, very excited for them to be hosting, especially because they're my favorite bar in the city. So yeah.
They're so good, and I need to get out there more. I feel so bad. Soon.
Yes.
Awesome. But I mean, that pretty much covers a lot of what I wanted to cover with you. And I guess I completely forgot their secrets. There are things that I don't even know are going to be happening at this thing. And that's exciting. But I just want to say thank you again for making the time to do this quick little interview. Thanks so much for all the work you've done and that you will continue to do with this project and moving forward. And yeah, I guess there are any last minute thoughts, little breadcrumbs that you want to sprinkle out there for folks to follow?
I think stay tuned for the virtual Sparks Volume 2 Unhinged series that are the videos that are going to be rolling out. Remember that not everything at the live performance will be available online. So if you really want to have the full Unhinged experience and some really good drinks or some really good mocktails, you have to come to my buddies. You just really do, and it's going to be great. And you'll get to see us. We're cool to talk to, I hope, at least a little bit. So you can see us, you can come say hi, and I think it'll be a great time. And I'm really excited for, even when Sparks is done, next step for the Lightbulb Factory. I know Rashad is working on some great stuff, so I'm excited to see that too.
Yes, and that will be our second live event. Location is still pending, but it's another really creative and awesome kind of concept for a play festival, 10-minute play festival. Awesome. But so people know, we'll begin the rollout roughly, I think we were initially planned the weekend or the week of Labor Day. And those will be rolling out there. We'll be plugging also the actors and the directors, playwrights. In addition to that, it'll all culminate in that live show, which is September 30th. September 30th at 7 p.m. At my buddies, which again is going to be wild, and I think cathartic. I'm anticipating tears of joy.
You know, tears of unhingedness, and sometimes, I mean, you know, some of the pieces are just absurd. Some of them are anger provoking. Some of them are really heart-wrenching. So a little bit of everything. I love it.
And I think that's a perfect note to leave this out on. So we look forward to seeing everybody on September 30th. We'll see you virtually here in the next 2 weeks. Thanks again, Julia-Kaye, and thanks to you, viewer. And yeah, we don't have like a slogan yet. We're going to work on that, but talk to you soon.